Hello guys, I'm Andrew Snipers and we're gonna talk about how me and a bunch of friends made the music video for the song Daltonica that was written and performed by this guy, the Doctor from
Case Scenario Band.
You can actually find the video in the description, and I would recommend to watch the video itself before. That will really help me to make a lot more sense in this tutorial. We will talk about every major aspects that I had to deal with from the equipment, the development of the video plot, filming, and finally the ultimate video editing in Adobe Premiere Pro. This is some kind of surreal story-driven video, and we didn't want to film like the classic people singing or dancing and stuff like that. However, this allowed a lot of freedom in the final editing because we didn't have to stick to the singer's lip sync and things like that. You won't get like a super professional video, but you will make a lot of experience and fun. Not mentioning that you buy the equipment once and keeping it, you can spread the costs on other projects. So let's really enter into this budget video making tutorial.
I got the Panasonic Lumix GX80, a very compact mirrorless Micro Four Third, also called GX85 in USA, a camera capable of 4K filming up to 30p and Full HD 1080p filming up to 60p. The 4K feature was mandatory for me because when exporting from 4K to 1080p, it allows zooming and moving inside the shoot to make some fake camera movements. The 60p was the second very important feature for the slow motion that is used a lot in music videos. I decided to export the final project at Full HD at 24p, and I could reach up to a 40% slow motion without dropping frames. An additional feature that I found very important for the budget was the great stabilization. It's incredible, and this allowed for greater saving in terms of additional equipment like sliders, steadicams, gimballs, and other stabilization stuff. I found the Lumix on Amazon warehouse deals. To save some more, I spent about 600 euro for the equipment, and this was like the only cost that I had for this video. I shouldn't probably even consider this as a real cost, because now I have a serious mirrorless camera for doing all the stuff, like holiday pictures for my family and so on. Speaking about the additional lens and the ND filters, I'm not entering too much in technical details, but in filming you want more lenses for shooting in different conditions. And for this project I could use the 12-32mm f3.5 electronic stock lens that I found with the camera, which is a good all-rounder that also gives additional in-bit stabilization, and the budget cinematic 7artisans 25mm f1.8 that I got separately and provided manual focus control, but less stabilization and zero electronic control. The ND filters were essential for shooting outside in full daylight. Remember that in filming you have only the aperture and ISO to control exposure, because you don't want to break the 180 degrees shutter speed rule. But when you reach the lowest ISO and you need to open to the max aperture because of filming necessities, you have only the ND filters left to save the shoot exposure. The last good thing about music video making is that you don't need a dedicated microphone, because there's like nothing to record.
We didn't have a crew, we didn't have camera stabilizers, neither lights or a director, a storyboard. We didn't have anything like that. So we really wanted to make a narrative theme rather than a typical music video with the band like dramatically playing.
We started making the tennis stuff first, which is basically filler, and this was my first real shoot. I had a lot of problems with the light, mainly because we shoot late in the morning and got a lot of contrast. I liked the idea of someone playing tennis in an urban setting with people hanging around, and I chose some kind of place on the seaside with a nice view. The second scene was a guy hanging in an urban landscape. The idea of this shoot was like a person who moves slowly in a very fast environment. The guy is walking and the clouds are speeding in the background. In another shoot, he sits on a bench with the people around in time-lapse. This was filmed at sunset with a tripod and a stock lens, but I did a bit of portraying with the manual lens in the end. At this point I was like pleading to film something in which there actually was playing a guitar, and we came
came out with the street artist, which would be someone playing in a deserted setting early in the morning. This is another filler, but at least we were having someone playing a guitar in the music video. These cuts were very useful in some lines that were transitioning the song in the verses and to the refrain. Then we went to film the colorblind game. This is clearly the main reference to the color blindness in the video. And we can see him failing to recognize the color of the cards, and this was entirely shot with the 7artisans lens. So we come now to the climax, the audition, which was the most complex scene because of the number of people involved. We wanted to film something like literally people dancing off time, but wanted also some kind of surreal thing with angry judges and things like that. We gathered in an amphitheater and made some kind of comic representation of an X Factor selection, and this in the story should be the audition to find the actors in the real music video. What computer do you need for editing 4K footage? I could survive with a $600 light gaming Windows desktop with 8 GB of RAM and an Intel Core i3-7100, which is not that good CPU. Again, I don't consider this as a real cost for video making because I use this computer for different everyday tasks like watching movies and playing video games. We arrive to the video editing. Speaking about the Premiere Pro, I will give some basic tips like how to correctly start a project and import the footage, doing the color correction, apply the cinematic black bars and things like that. First of all, you need to open a new project, and I wouldn't touch anything in this settings screen. Then you have to create a new sequence, and I wanted it to be 1080p at 24 frames per second. The 24p is a well-known feature that gives the cinematic feel to your video. Consider in fact that the 99% of movies are exported in 24p. In reality, this number is exactly 23.976, but everyone says 24 for simplicity. So we insert the footage in the lower left tab. Remember that the footage has to be interpreted to 24p, or at least a multiple of 24p, or you are getting dropped frames in the final exported video, and you really don't want that. I didn't really film anything at 24p, so I had every time to decide how to interpret the footage. When exporting 4K 30p footage to 24p, I got a dreamy 80% slow motion. For 1080p footage that was entirely filmed in 60p, I could choose to interpret it to 38p, getting again at 80% slow motion, or 24p, getting a whooping 40% slow motion. There were parts that I wanted to be faster than normal, and I interpreted them to a higher FPS value, but always a multiple of 24p. The last thing to do is deleting the audio channel of your footage because it's useless for this music video project. About color correction. I never got the right color and exposure in raw footage, so I always had to change some parameter to correct the scene. You can directly modify the footage itself, but you can also add an adjustment layer, doing something similar you did when creating the sequence. To give a visual feel that I liked, I frequently had to lower the exposure and desaturate the frame, adjusting also the warmth and the color curves. I didn't apply any preset because I felt that they were too heavy for me. To add the cinematic black bars, you just need to insert the crop effect in the footage and apply 10 black pixels at the top and at the bottom of the picture.